What is up, everybody? Matt Parrino here, nyupsyracuse.com, and I am joined today by big time first time caller, not a long time listener, but big day for you. First training camp, not only for the Bills, but for anything, because you were covering college football last year, started late on the beat. This is Marcel Louis-Jacques. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here, and not just here in the dorm here at St. John Fisher. Just happy to be at training camp in general, man. A lot of energy, not just on the field. A lot of energy from the fans, from the crowd. There are plenty of things for people to do out here. It's just a really cool experience to see this level of fan engagement this far this long before the start of the season.
Mm-hmm. And we are quite a ways away from the start of the season, but it's nice after, an off season where it's so much talking about what could be to finally get a chance to see what this team is going to look like. And today, first things first, Josh Allen. I think that's always the main topic of conversation when you're talking about this team. And I thought he looked pretty crisp. I mean, they weren't really going into too much in terms of the 11-on-11 drills, but they were working the red zone. They were working the 2-minute to start, 7-on-7. But he was where you'd hope him to be. Nothing crazy. But what were your impressions your first time seeing him kind of live and up close?
Yeah, I think we got a little glimpse of the maturation of Josh Allen as a passer today. Brandon Beane came out and told us earlier this morning that they don't necessarily want him to cut the deep shots out completely, but they want him to pick his spots more carefully. And I believe his terminology was take a 2nd and 5, take a 2nd and 6, if that's what the defense is giving you. Mm-hmm. So that's what we saw a lot of today. We saw a lot of swing passes, a lot of quick outs, quick hits. Based on just top of my head, I don't remember seeing him throw the ball longer than 20 yards or so today.
No.
So we saw a lot of just timing drills, and to his credit, he was nailing them. Mm-hmm. He looked sharp. He sounded great after practice as well. The quote that really stuck with me was checkdowns are not a cop-out. It's often the smartest play on the field. And ultimately, that's what Buffalo wants him to do. They want him to make the smartest play, because with a defense like this and that should be able to limit opponents' scoring, Allen doesn't really need to go out and win games like Aaron Rodgers needs to go win games for his team, or Mahomes needed to go win games. He basically needs to be smart enough to not turn it over and put this defense in a precarious position, and just be good enough to put enough points on the board, give them a lead to protect, and defense should be able to take it from there.
One of the big things, it's a great synopsis. I mean, this, again, just got to Buffalo, kind of getting yourself settled a little bit, but, I've enjoyed just the last couple of days getting to know him just a little bit. Marcel is obviously a big football guy, is enjoying it out here. Really enjoys Buffalo, which, from the outskirts looking in, a lot of times I think people don't anticipate people getting to Buffalo and then enjoying it, but you're enjoying your time a little bit.
Yeah, and what helped me out there is I don't know the relationship between Buffalonians and Clevelanders. I hope I got the demonym right there. But I went to Cleveland last December when the Panthers played the Browns.
Okay.
And went there, open mind. Everybody, it's Cleveland's everyone's favorite punching bag, sports-wise, city-wise, name it. And it turned out to just be this really cool city with great food, great nightlife, fun people. And that kind of opened my mind up to the idea that, hey, maybe some of these places that the rest of the country wants to make fun of are really not that bad, or are just great places in general. So getting here in the summer, I think, helps. Getting to see the lake time in the summer helps. But no, I've been blown away by Buffalo so far.
So moving on to back over to practice. So one of my big observations today was, taking a look at Josh Allen, taking a look at what's going on with this wide receiver core, because so many new pieces that are getting added in the mix, obviously John Brown and Cole Beasley, but with their addition into the mix comes changes in roles for guys that are already here. And so you're already seeing today, just one day, no pads, so you don't want to overreact, but John Brown got pretty much the majority of the first team reps. Robert Foster was sprinkled in there a few times, I noticed, but it's interesting because I feel like as we move through the spring and now on to this part of the season, he's kind of being treated as that veteran presence in the locker room, a guy that the only guy with a 1,000-yard receiving season on his resume, a bunch of young guys around him. You have that Cole Beasley, that veteran presence as well. But I think expectations are going to start getting cranked up here a bit for John Brown because of the kind of dynamic nature that he can add to this offense.
He does, and I think he's the only receiver on roster right now who has an elite trait. And he's an elite deep ball receiver. That 1,000-yard season might be somewhat of an anomaly compared to the rest of his career, but he's battled injuries, he's battled poor quarterback play. So, it's hard to put a real pin on what all he brings as a complete receiver, but there is no doubt that he is an elite deep ball threat. People have been, I've seen fans already on social media crown him as the de facto number one receiver for Buffalo. And I think that might be a little presumptuous just because there just is no number one receiver on this roster. And take that, hold off on the pitchforks real quick, guys. But there's no number one receiver in that. There's no Odell, there's no Michael Thomas, there's no Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins. There's no guy right now who is dynamic enough to funnel targets into. And I think that is what a number one receiver, it looks like. So I think right now they have some guys who do a lot of things well. Zay Jones looked great today. Popular red zone target, ran crisp routes, didn't see him drop anything. Cole Beasley looking like still some chemistry issues with him and Josh Allen, but it's day one of training camp. There's plenty of time. But this is going to be a sum of all parts kind of receiver corps. There is no, I wouldn't expect to see one number one guy. It's not like there's going to be one guy getting 10 to 12 targets every week in and week out. It's just not that kind of roster. And I think as a whole, the NFL and football fans, unless you have that just superstar receiver, it's time to kind of disassociate yourself with that phrase, the number one receiver phrase, because it's becoming a somewhat of a relic in the NFL right now.
And I think I'm very interested in you bringing that up, because I think that Cole Beasley could end up, while not being that traditional number one receiver, could be a guy that ends up with the most targets on this team. You look at what Josh Allen did late in the season last year. He really was utilizing his slot threat in Isaiah McKenzie, who you figure you're going to get an upgrade there with Cole Beasley. Wasn't utilized a ton in Dallas last year, and you hope that kind of equals some success between those two. But you saw it today, and I tweeted out that there was two plays in particular where Josh Allen, very short 10-yard out routes near the goal line, just put it out too far in front of Cole Beasley, just couldn't connect. And you listen to some of the national guys talking about, and women talking about Josh Allen's accuracy issues, and those are going to be the throws that I think he has to consistently figure out a way to make, because you don't get second and third chances in the red zone on third down when you have a chance to make a play. You don't get, he showed last year that he can use his legs to make plays, especially in that 20-yard zone, to score points. But as teams start to take that away, I think he's got to figure that out.
And you're right. It's something that you want these things to happen right now. You want these miscommunications, these missed throws, these overthrows to happen right here at St. John Fisher College and not at New Era Field or the various stadiums they're going this season. But I like what you said about that Cole Beasley could end up leading the team in targets. It ties into what Bean and McDermott want Allen to do with the ball this season, and that just get the ball into these guys' hands and let them work from there. It's a philosophy I know that Carolina uses, and I think the league's going to see how successful a strategy like that can be in 2019. Beasley, he's sneaky athletic, and I shouldn't even say sneaky athletic because he's been around long enough that it shouldn't be a secret. You should know that Cole Beasley is a hell of a football player. I think that he was underutilized in Dallas. I think he has an opportunity here, as he said a few weeks back, to show the true range of his ability. And it starts right here in camp. So it's something to keep an eye on as they go along. It didn't look like there was a whole lot of parity in how the first team receivers sets lined up. It looked to be pretty much, Zay Jones, John Brown, and Cole Beasley. So they'll get plenty of work with Josh Allen as we go along.
If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them here. I don't know if they're being asked and I'm not seeing him, and I can always bring it up on my phone. So feel free to drop those in here. And if I don't get to them in this, I will come back later and answer your questions, anything you had about today. But I don't want to get too much into the offensive line right now because the pads aren't on yet. And I want to wait a couple days to see if we're seeing any type of how they're shuffling. Like today, for instance, Mitch Morse, Quentin Spain at left guard, and then Deion Dawkins at left tackle was pretty consistent. And they were flipping John Feliciano, Cody Ford to start, and then you saw Spencer Long and Ty Nsekhe come in late. It'll be interesting to see how those kind of things progress here, and I think that Quentin Spain has a leg up already. I think that they're viewing him as maybe, before the game start as a guy that's probably going to win one of those two jobs. But more importantly than that, I want to talk about Ed Oliver because I thought Sean McDermott said something interesting today when he was asked about Oliver, and he made a point to say that he's a rookie, and then he ended the statement with a very dynamic, he has a long way to go. And he's going to say that for most rookies. But for Oliver, I just feel like when he was drafted at number 9 and the Bills being tied to him for so long, the expectations were so high. He's coming in, he's being asked to replace Kyle Williams. He's being asked to crank things up from pressuring the quarterback perspective, which this team didn't really do consistently last year. So how long do you think it should take for him to get himself assimilated? And then should we start to see him make an impact?
Yeah, and I think it's probably smart for McDermott to temper expectations of your rookie, hopefully a franchise cornerstone. But, for now, you don't want to put too much on his plate from the outside perspective, outside world. He does have, kind of an uphill battle. Like you said, he is replacing a franchise legend. He does need to be the guy that provides an interior pressure, an interior pass rush, to help spark something for this defense. It's the one thing that's holding them back. That pass rush that's holding them back from being a truly elite unit. But I think as he goes along, we'll get a better idea once they get pads on. But for a guy that talented, there shouldn't really be much of a reason for him not to make an impact by the middle of the year. And I think where he's going to benefit are these first 8 games of the season. You're not playing a lot of talented offensive line groups. You've got the Jets and Giants first 2 weeks. You got a rebuilding Bengals unit that just lost their first round pick for the year in Jonah Williams. New England's going to be a tough test. Always Philadelphia will be a tough test. But even with the Titans, you're getting an offensive line that's getting its leader back after a 4-game suspension. You don't know what level of play they're going to be at. You don't know what kind of chemistry they're going to show. There are so many opportunities for him to get a comfortable, start to his career during the soft part of the schedule, because it gets difficult after that. You got Dallas on Thanksgiving is going to be hard. New England again is going to be difficult.
We're going to get some turkey, by the way.
You can get some turkey?
Where are we going to get some turkey for that?
I thought Jerry was providing it, man. Like, I assume that big, $2 billion stadium, you can slide I want a personal turkey with my name engraved on the knife and everything.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you got Dallas, you got Pittsburgh's always an excellent offensive line, and you can't wait until that point to get into your groove. But you kind of have to establish it during that easy part of the schedule.
Right.
So best case scenario I think for him is he is either starting or getting comfortable reps by the time that Thanksgiving game comes around, and by the time it's time to really crank things up and decide, is this a playoff team or not? And because he's going to be, when he's at his best, I think if he does what he did at Houston, he'll be a deciding factor. He'll be a catalyst in how good this Buffalo Bills defense can truly be.
Kyle asked, how was Tremaine Edmonds start to camp today? It's hard to really, miss him, but until they get the pads on and we're starting to see some actual coverage scenarios, because they're not really touching each other out there, it's hard to really put that into perspective. But I will say this about that defense. You're going to see, if you come out to training camp this year and you're watching, you're hoping for big days from Josh Allen, and you might get dejected if he has himself a bad game. Don't feel too bad about it, because he is going up against one of the best secondaries in this league. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, even that second unit now with Kevin Johnson, who had a big spring, and now EJ Gaines with an interception today for that second team, very experienced guy who has played in the system before. That secondary, I think the expectations, if you talk about expectations, some of the highest that I have for any individual unit this year is that secondary.
And for good reason. When you allow 100, I think it was 174 passing yards a game, you're going to turn some heads. It doesn't matter if you play in Buffalo or New York City. That was an impressive unit last year. It's they're still gelling together, but this is now year 3 with Poyer Hyde and Tre'Davious White, and you cannot undersell how important continuity and uniformity is when it comes to not having to learn each other's tendencies, to learn each other's speeds and skill limitations. And I think that's just I think they have an opportunity to really, really be special, especially if, and once again, we're going back to the pass rush, if they can start providing more pressure on opposing quarterbacks and getting that ball out quicker, it's giving, then it's forcing the quarterback to put a ball up, to throw basically a prayer up to a ball hawking secondary. That's not a position you want to be in as an offense. So no, I'm excited, and I'm glad you mentioned the depth with Johnson and Gaines. You still have Levi Wallace back there. There's plenty to look forward to. Kirk Coleman as well at safety. That's a ton of experience. I think Sean McDermott said somewhere around 80 starts in his career. Like you can't have, and this is a problem that actually I wrote about today. This is a problem that the Bills have had to rectify over the past few years. It is the drop off from your starter to your second, your third, your fourth unit. The gap was just so wide that if there was an injury or if players were tired, that you almost you're doing yourself a disservice by putting the next unit in, and that's not the case anymore. I think that's something Brandon Beane's done a good job these past few years of solving, of fixing, and it's a telling point. It's a trademark of successful franchises, is having that quality, functional depth, and there are few positions on the Bills roster deeper than cornerback and safety right now.
Yeah, I really like that you bring up that continuity, because even Jordan Poyer talked about that back in minicamp, was how important it is now that he knows what Micah Hyde's doing without him having to even think about it. It's like second nature. It's like you just react, and it just changes the dynamic of how you play. Before we get out of here, I didn't want to go too long because we got to go get dinner. It's been a long day.
Say, you don't think about this stuff, but whenever you stop moving, it's like a shark. When you start moving, you start thinking, man, I am really hungry.
Yeah, I'm really hungry. But I wanted to bring up Josh Allen because one of the how I spent a big portion of my day today was I just captured a nice kind of little moment between Josh Allen and a fan. Talked to the fan, talked to Josh Allen, and it's been interesting to see. Check it out on my Twitter account if you haven't seen it yet. But it's really cool. But I think one of the coolest things is the reaction from the fan base. Is I saw one comment and I thought it was so cool that, okay, I don't even care if he ever ends up being the guy. I'm just a fan of Josh Allen. And I feel like so often in sports we get so caught up, especially with Josh Allen, with how polarizing he is as a talent. It's important to remember that these guys are people too. And, I think Josh Allen, kudos to him. He seems to be doing everything right, from a work ethic perspective, trying to get better as a player, because that's what he's being paid to do. And that's what fans, are hoping that he can become.
Right.
But it seems like he's really connecting with the fan base, and that's cool too.
It is. And this was the first day I met Josh Allen. It was a positive first impression. I think that he's got a responsibility as the quarterback of such a beloved team to really connect with the community and connect with the franchise or with its fans. And I think that's something their video series embedded, highlighted was his efforts to start connecting to the community. And you saw it out here today. He spent a lot of time signing autographs, taking pictures, meeting fans, and that's important. This job for them it's more than just throwing the ball around and catching it, tackling each other. There's a social obligation to it, and it is good to see somebody in their second year, embrace that, not say I'm the number 7 pick, I don't have to do blah 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 blah. It is good to see from him. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, and really I'll use that to establish more of an opinion on him. But good first impression today.
Yes.
Not that my opinion of him really matters in the long run, but I came away impressed from the few minutes I got with him.
Awesome. Before we get out of here, tell them where they can find your work.
Yeah, find me ESPN.com, Bills. Go to the NFL tab, find the Bills, read my coworker stuff as well. You can find me on Twitter at Marcel_LJ or Instagram at MLouisJA. It's in my bio on Twitter if you need help spelling it.
Awesome. And guys, head over to, I see Brian, you're asking about Dawson Knox. I'm going to talk a lot about Dawson Knox tomorrow over on our Instagram page, Buffalo Bills on NY Up. Search it over there. I'll put it, it's in my bio. I'll get a link to it in this comment section. I'm going to be going live before and after practice tomorrow just to recap a crazy day from today, which I haven't been able to get on there yet. And then we'll talk about tomorrow's practice too. Guys, as always, thank you so much for joining me. Marcel, thank you for joining me.
Of course, anytime.
Look forward to his work all year on the beat, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.